Jennifer, it's so nice to meet you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Tell me, you've got a lot that you can say, but you started the Ruth Institute.
Yes.
Tell me about the Ruth Institute, how you got involved with that.
Okay, I started the Ruth Institute because I could see that children need their own parents, and that all the things we're doing in society are undermining people's ability to get married and stay married.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm convinced children need their own parents is because in 1991, my husband and I had two, not one, but two children. Within 6 months' time, we adopted a little boy from a Romanian orphanage,
Okay.
who was 2.5 years old when we
Okay.
got him. And then we gave birth to a little girl 6 months later.
Okay.
So having those two kids together, that
Yeah.
close together, 3 years apart chronological age, but developmentally very, very different. Our little boy didn't know his own name at the age of 2.5.
Wow.
Okay, so that's not normal.
Right.
That's
Right.
not normal child development. So it just taught us, it was just in our face, obvious,
Yeah.
that children need their parents.
Yeah.
Children need their parents, and all this stuff that we're doing in society, this sort of libertarian laissez-faire, well, if the parents agree to it, it'll all be great, that just is crazy. That cannot withstand actual contact with an actual child.
Right.
Right, but children really, truly need their own parents. So everything that I do now at the Ruth Institute is with the idea of trying to connect children to their parents and try to say that it's an issue of justice. It is an issue of justice for children that families remain together and that families form in the first place. As you know, a lot of families don't even form.
Right.
Which is a huge problem as well.
A huge problem.
Not a huge problem. So that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Okay. So the Ruth Institute started what year? Was it after?
I started the Ruth Institute in 2008, thinking that I was going to be talking to college girls about why they should get married at an early age and not worry about waiting until they got tenure or waiting until they made partner in the law firm before they ever thought about getting married.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what I did, and that's crazy. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
But then in 2008, I was in San Diego, California, and at that time, Proposition 8 came up.
Yeah.
And Proposition 8 actually started in San Diego. The Catholic community in San Diego got the money together to get an initiative on the ballot to say we're going to have the Constitution of California say that marriage is between one man and one woman. And because I was there, and I had just started the organization, I didn't feel that I could sit out and say, well, that's not my issue. I'm just going to, I'll do what I plan to do and just be quiet.
Yeah.
Because I knew that redefining marriage was going to end up redefining parenthood,
Yeah.
and not in a way that was going to benefit children.
Yeah.
So therefore I felt I had to speak out about it, and that's how I got involved in that whole set of issues, which wasn't what I intended to do at
Right.
all.
Right.
But then as things have unfolded, since 2013, it's become clear that we would have gay marriage everywhere.
Right.
That side of things was going to have to change.
Right.
And so we kind of returned to first principles.
Yeah.
And said, okay, what's the problem here? The problem here is that children do not really have a right to a relationship with their parents. And we think that's wrong. And so the
Yeah.
whole of the sexual revolution is in play. As soon as you see that, as soon as you see that children have a right to their own parents, if you start with that premise, you just start, kids deserve their own parents. They
Yes.
deserve a relationship with their parents. They deserve and are entitled to their identity. They deserve to know who they are.
Right.
As soon as you start with that something is owed to children, if you reason outward from that,
Yeah.
what you'll end up with is traditional Christian morality.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you'll end up with. Don't have sex until you're married.
Yeah.
Stay married.
Yeah.
Don't be fooling around with somebody you're not married to.
Yeah.
And be nice to your spouse because it actually matters
Yeah.
to more
Yeah.
than just the two of you.
Yeah.
If you're mean to each other and stuff, that matters. All of those things that were always part and parcel of Christian morality,
Yeah.
that all comes into play. And we now call it family justice.
Right.
So we are family justice warriors.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned so many things. So many questions in that brief thing that I'd like to ask you. You linked the breakdown of the family with the sexual revolution
Yes.
of the 60s. Can you explain that, expound on that a little bit
Well,
more?
the sexual revolution, I define it as having three components that are still with us.
Okay.
See? And so it had those forms, it had certain forms in the 1960s. But it's still it won. I mean, this is a revolution that succeeded, okay?
Right.
And it's still part of the culture, and it continues to accelerate. So one point of the sexual revolution is that a good and decent society should separate sex from babies, and that everybody's entitled to have as much sex as they want without having a baby. Okay. Well, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun, but actually, you can't build a whole society around the idea that sex doesn't make babies. You know, that just can't be done.
Yeah.
So that's one point. The second point is that a good society should separate sex and marriage and babies from each other. So sex and babies have nothing to do with marriage. You know, you don't have to be married to have sex. You don't have to be married to have babies.
Right.
And the underlying premise of that is that kids don't really need their parents.
Yeah.
Right? That you can switch out the parents, you can switch out the sex partners, and it'll all be good.
Yeah.
You know, well, that's not true either.
Right.
Kids do need their parents, right? And so if that's true, then that imposes constraints on adults and adult behavior, and that's what people don't want to hear.
No, don't tell me that.
Nobody want to hear that,
Okay.
you know. But on the other hand, you know, what we've come down to is that adults get to do whatever they want, and kids just have to accept whatever the adults give them. And we don't say that out loud because we'd be ashamed of ourselves if we just blurted it out like that. But that's what it amounts to.
So we've created this new lie that kids are resilient.
They're so resilient, you know, they're so resilient. But of course, if we were talking about child labor, nobody would say kids are resilient, they can work 10 hours in a coal mine. You know, nobody would say kids are resilient. You know, nobody would say, oh, child poverty, oh, child hunger, oh, they're resilient. It'll be fine with 1,000 calories a day, it'll be great, you know. No, nobody talks like that. It's only when we're talking about sexual activity of adults and the fact that the needs of children place constraints on adults. That's when we want to say, oh, the kids are resilient, they'll be fine no matter what we do.
That's very interesting that you've said that. Now, you wrote a foreword to Layla Miller's book.
No, hold on, I got one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got one more thing on the sexual revolution.
Okay.
I got one more thing, and that's the gender ideology. So the first thing that I said is the contraceptive ideology.
Right.
Not to be confused with just the pill sitting on the shelf. The pill sitting on the shelf is fine. It does no harm sitting there. You know, people can use it. It's this crazy ideology that sex doesn't make babies.
Right.
You know, that's what's driving everybody mad. You know?
Or if they make babies, we can kill them.
Well, that's the only way you can make it work.
Yeah,
See,
exactly.
abortions there is the backup plan to make that whole thought process.
1973, right after the sexual revolution.
That's
we
right.
have problems now.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
You're right. You're thinking along the right lines. But the third point of the sexual revolution is what I call the gender ideology, which, like all of these ideologies, started with one thing, but it keeps morphing. See, it keeps moving because it's irrational in the first place, so it can't hold on. You know, got to keep rotating it around and stuff. The gender ideology started off with a form of feminism that said men and women are completely interchangeable. Men and women are exactly the same, of course, except women are better. Don't tell anybody that. Men and women are identical, except women are better. You know, that's a feminism that I kind of grew up with, right?
Yeah.
But now it's morphed, and the idea there is that the sex of the body is a social construct and is not particularly important. And everything that we think has something to do with male-female roles, it's all socially constructed. Therefore, it can be reconstructed, and so there's nothing significant or important about it. What that has morphed into is that it's not just the sex of the body is socially constructed and so can be reconstructed, but now you can personally reconstruct it. So it's not just that men and women are interchangeable, it's that I can change myself into a man if I want to. With enough social engineering, with enough technological engineering, I can become a man if I want to. Bruce Jenner can become a woman if he wants to. You know, so in both cases they seem to be contradictory, you know, and they are actually logically in conflict with each other. But the thing they have in common is the position that the sex of the body is not important. See, the sex of the body is not important, and in either case we override it. All right, whether I'm doing it to myself or whether the whole culture is saying that a father-daughter dance is unlawful sex stereotyping.
Oh, good.
Which is what we say.
Wow. That's amazing.
See, so that's the gender idea. So
Yeah.
those three things together, that's what's making us all crazy,
Yeah.
because they're all false.
Yeah.